Welcome back to our series on the economic analysis of agency law. I'm Professor Seth C. Oranburg, and today we're talking about bonding. Not the kind of bonding you do over coffee or our shared love of Dr. Seuss. I'm talking about economic bonding. Economic bonding are strategies principals use to align incentives with agents, and this reduces the risks associated with delegation. Think of bonding as a glue that holds the principal-agent relationship together, creating accountability and efficiency by tying an agent's rewards, and thus personal motivations, to the principal's goals. Once again, we'll come back to Hotch Hotch. And now the mayor is continuing his quest to optimize the town's honey production. After implementing fiduciary duties and rebuilding trust, things had started to stabilize. But the mayor wasn't satisfied with stability. The mayor wanted growth. How do we make the system better? The mayor wondered. That's when a watcher named Horton had an idea. What if we tied our rewards directly to the bee's performance? Horton suggested. If we're invested in the outcomes, we'll work harder and smarter. The mayor was intrigued. How would they work? He asked. Horton proposed a bonus system. Each watcher would receive a portion of their pay based on how much honey the bee produced that day. The idea was simple. If watchers have skin in the game, to use the phrase, they'd be more motivated to ensure the bee performed well. The mayor approved the plan, and at first it seemed to be working beautifully. Watchers started experimenting with new ways to encourage the bee. One even played soothing music to keep the bee focused. Honey production hit record highs. But the system started to show some cracks after a while. One watcher, Thing 1, discovered that feeding the bee sugar water made it produce honey faster, and so he did it even though it was not in the handbook. Another watcher, Sam, pushed the bee so hard that it burned out and stopped working altogether. What had started as a well-intentioned incentive system quickly spiraled into chaos. And the mayor realized that assigning and aligning incentives wasn't as simple as he'd hoped. The story illustrates the promise and pitfalls of bonding. In economic terms, bonding refers to mechanisms that link an agent's rewards to the principal's objectives. And these include things like performance-based pay, personal guarantees, or reputational stakes. Bonding is designed to reduce moral hazard by giving agents a direct incentive to act in the principal's best interests, even when they know the principal can't observe them. But as we just saw in Hotch Hotch, poorly designed incentives can backfire, creating unintended consequences and new inefficiencies. Let's unpack that a little bit more. The first challenge with bonding is balancing short-term and long-term goals. In Hotch Hotch, the bonus system incentivized short-term honey production, but it didn't account for the bee's well-being or the sustainability of the hive. Economists would call this a misaligned incentive structure, and it's a common problem. In the real world, we have this too. Consider executive compensation. Many companies tie CEO bonuses to quarterly earnings, which can encourage risky behavior to meet short-term targets at the expense of long-term stability. The 2008 financial crisis is full of examples where these kind of incentives led to disastrous outcomes. Another challenge is monitoring. Even with a bonding system in place, principals need some level of oversight to ensure agents aren't gaming the system. Back in Hotch Hotch, the mayor had to implement stricter monitoring after discovering that watchers were cutting corners. In the real world, companies use audits, performance reviews, and compliance programs to achieve the same goal. But monitoring adds costs. So principals have to find the right balance between oversight and efficiency. A third challenge is what economists call residual loss. Even with a well-designed bonding system, there's always a gap between the ideal outcome and what actually happens. In Hotch Hotch, no incentive system could fully eliminate the risk of watchers acting in their own self-interest. Residual loss is a reminder that no system is perfect. Principals must accept some level of inefficiency as the cost of delegation. So how do principals design effective bonding systems? The key is alignment. Alignment means incentives reflect the principal's true goals. not just the easiest metrics to measure. Back in Hotch Hotch, the mayor adjusted the bonus structure to include metrics for hive sustainability and bee health. That encouraged watchers to take a more holistic approach, balancing productivity with long-term outcomes. Transparency is also crucial. When agents understand how their performance is being evaluated and how rewards are calculated, they're more likely to trust the system and act in good faith. In Hotch Hotch, the mayor introduced regular check-ins to discuss the bonus system, address concerns, and make adjustments based on feedback. These open conversations help reduce suspicion and foster collaboration. Finally, principals can use reputational bonding. In episode 6, we talked about how trust and reputation reduce transactions costs. Reputation is a powerful incentive because it extends beyond the immediate principal-agent relationship. In Hotch Hotch, watchers with a strong reputation for fairness and diligence found themselves sought after by neighboring towns for advice and consulting opportunities. These reputations became a form of social capital, motivating them to act responsibly, even without direct oversight. Let's consider a real-world example. Venture capitalists often use bonding strategies to align incentive with startup founders. In many cases, funding is provided in stages, and whether or not a company gets funding is tied to it meeting specific milestones like product launches or revenue targets. The staged funding model gives founders the resources they need while ensuring they remain focused on delivering results. At the same time, founders know their reputations are on the line. Success can lead to future opportunities, while failure will limit access to funding. Back in Hotch Hotch, the revised bonus system helped stabilize the watcher's behavior. By incorporating long-term metrics, increasing transparency, and leveraging reputation, the mayor was able to create a more balanced and effective incentive structure. But the mayor also learned an important lesson. Incentives alone aren't enough. Delegation requires constant adaptation, open communication, and a willingness to course correct when things go wrong. So what's the takeaway? Bonding is a powerful tool for managing agency relationships, but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Principals must carefully design incentives to align with their goals. They must monitor performance to prevent abuse, and they must remain flexible in the face of changing circumstances. By understanding the dynamics of bonding, principals can create systems that encourage accountability, foster trust, and drive long-term success. In the next episode, we'll explore the entrepreneurial side of agency relationships. We'll ask how delegation unlocks creativity, innovation, and risk-taking. We'll look at how principals and agents navigate uncertainty, and how entrepreneurship shapes markets and organizations. And as usual, we'll be back to Watch to see how the watchers continue to adapt and innovate. For now, thank you for joining me on this episode. I'm Professor Seth C. Oranburg, and I'll continue the journey with you in episode 8.